Hello wine lovers, it's Matthew here from Simply Spanish Wine, and today we're in Rioja. It's the 1st of June 2022. It's a scorchingly hot day. We've had really unusually hot weather all over Spain, and today is no exception. We've got to be at about 34 degrees, I should think, where Ben and I are out here in the hot Riojan sun recording for you, and we're in a really interesting corner of Rioja. We're just outside the village of Aucejo. Now Aucejo is about 25 kilometers sort of southeast of Logroño. It's actually in the bit of Rioja that's called Rioja Oriental, or Eastern Rioja. What used to be called Rioja Baja, but it's now called Rioja Oriental. Remember, we've got Rioja, also have Rioja Alta and the Rioja Alavesa, the three sort of subzones of Rioja. But we're in the Rioja Oriental. And we are just outside the village of Aucejo, where one of our favourite wineries in this part of the world have their headquarters, and that winery is Casa La Rad. It's a wonderful estate, very large estate. They've got over 120 hectares just of grapevines planted here. And it's in a really interesting corner of Rioja, because the land here rises up from the Ebro Valley. I've got the Ebro Valley here over to the north, and it rises up heading towards the Sierra that is to the south, and that is the Sierra de la Demanda and the Sierra de la Cebollera, which are the two main ranges, if you like, which separate Rioja from Soria and Castile, the rest heading south into Castilla-La Mancha and central Spain. So here we are, as I say, we're at Casa La Rad. We're up at the top of their plots at their 120 hectare estate, times 2.4, and you get it into acres. But we're behind me. You can see one of the key features around here, which is the Sierra de la Demanda and the Sierra de la Cebollera, and these are the mountain ranges which, if you like, separate Rioja on its southern side from the province of Soria and central Spain and Castilla-La Mancha. So that's the barrier on the southern side. Behind the camera, over to the north, you've got the Ebro Plain, and then beyond that, another sierra, another mountain range, which is the Sierra de Cantabria, and as its name suggests, that separates Rioja on the northern side from the Cantabrian Sea. And that's what creates this special climate here in Rioja, which is a sort of blend between Mediterranean and continental climate. The Mediterranean is about 250, 300 kilometers that away, down the valley, following the Ebro to where it pours out into the Mediterranean in Tortosa in Catalonia. And the warming winds from the Mediterranean can come up the valley and sort of compensate for some of the more continental influences in the Rioja climate. So really we're in a crossroads in winemaking terms between the Mediterranean Sea and the high plains of central Castile. And you can see behind me on the hillside there, we've got windmills generating much needed electricity. Of course, if you live in Spain, you know that there are windmills all over the place, but it's one of the features of the landscape, because Spain is a very high country. We've talked about this before here on Simply Spanish Wine, but apart from the obvious places like, Austria and Switzerland, it's one of Europe's, it's got one of the highest average altitudes of all European countries, and that's great for winemaking. We've talked about this. Altitude brings freshness to the grapes, and as you go around Spain, you'll find people in high altitude areas. The kind of demand from wine growers to find and secure and buy high altitude plots is growing all the time, because they're really coveted spots for grape growing. So what are the key things about Casa La Rad? Well, as I say, it's a big estate, 120 hectares, family-owned estate, which is good. They control all the wine growing and the wine production. They look after their grapes very, very carefully. And they experiment, because they've got so much land and so many different altitudes. They can grow, for example, Chardonnay grapes at 650 meters above sea level, then another plot a little bit lower down and a little bit lower down, and they can start to see the differences between the fruit grown at the three different levels, and that then they can do different experimental blends in the winery. They've got a fantastic barrel room with lots and lots of 225 litre, 300 litre, 500 litre French and American oak, and that allows allows them to do all sorts of different experimentations and come up with some wonderful blends. Because they have so much space here, that also allows them to experiment with lots of different varieties. So you've got all the standards, you've got all the classics like Tempranillo, Garnacha, Biura, but you've also got different varieties like Graciano or Maturano, which were, and Graciano, for example, was a red grape which was pretty popular back in the olden days in Rioja. Used to give good acidity and freshness to wines. Fell out of use a little bit, but here at Casa La Rad they're starting to grow it and experiment with it in their blends again, which is fantastic. So it speaks to this long winemaking tradition that we've got here in Rioja, which is starting to make a real comeback. People are starting to look at how winemakers, the types of grapes that they used to grow in the past, how they would treat those grapes, how they would blend them in the winery, and they're starting to really go back to those winemaking roots in the wines that they're making. So it's a really, really exciting place to be. Great time to be here, even if it is a little hot.